I'm just a rock chick.
I would describe my music and my sound as Avril Lavigne.
It's the best damn thing.
Welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast, a facts and trivia-based podcast about Canadian pop singer Avril Lavigne. I'm your host, Andrew DiFrancesco. In our first bonus episode of 2026, we're going to run through a few new songs that have come out, mainly Avril's newly released cover of Ironic by Alanis Morissette, as well as a couple of leaks. But before we begin, let's first catch up on the latest Avril news since our last episode back in February. On March 13th, a short snippet of the Under My Skin outtake Not Gonna Run leaked. As of the time of this recording, the full song has not been widely circulated. On March 21st, singer Lola Young posted a set of pictures on her Instagram story with Avril at Paris Hilton's birthday party, writing, "Full circle moment for me. Avril, you are everything to me. Thank you at Avril Lavigne." Avril also followed Lola on Instagram. On March 29th, two collaborations with girlfriends leaked called Adrenaline and Love Just Isn't Enough. It's believed by fans that these songs were intended for girlfriends, but neither song ended up on their latest album, released in October 2025. On April 10th, a trailer dropped for the film Mile End Kicks, featuring a version of Ironic by Alanis Morissette sung by Avril. The full song was released on April 15th, 2 days ahead of the film's theatrical release. The song was originally written by Alanis Morissette and Glenn Ballard, and Avril's version was produced by John Feldman. The film's official Instagram account posted the song, writing, "From one Canadian icon to another, may we introduce Avril Lavigne's cover of Ironic by Alanis Morissette." Additionally, Avril ranked number 19 on Billboard's Top 100 Women Artists of the 21st Century. They wrote her gloriously unapologetic sense of whatever dude entitlement and jagged pop sound has inspired artists from Taylor Swift to an ascendant new generation of indie rockers like Soccer Mommy. Avril also ranked number 23 on Polestar's list of the top women touring artists of the 21st century, based on number of tickets sold from 2001 to 2025. Avril has sold over 2.3 million tickets total based on 274 shows in her career, ranking ahead of Billie Eilish and Helene Fisher. Let Go reached 3 billion streams on Spotify, and the Greatest Hits album has surpassed 6 billion streams on Spotify. And Zara Larsson sang Complicated as part of a VIP soundcheck event for her concert tour in Orlando, Florida. So before we dive in a little more on this, I just wanted to quickly explain why I wanted to do this very quick bonus episode. So I still haven't yet worked on my idea of going through all of Avril's music videos and kind of doing a little analysis of them and little Easter eggs and stuff like that. That's definitely something that I still want to do at some point, but I just haven't had the chance to start working on it. And I just figured, like, Avril has, of course, been really quiet, as we know, this year. We're not really sure what's going on, like, what is the reason behind why she's been largely pretty silent on social media and why there's not been a lot of activity going on. But of course, as we see, that there's always things that she's working on that we just don't know about, like with this Ironic cover, which I'll get into more. But anyway, I just thought because there hasn't been a lot of activity with her, that it would probably be a while until I did another proper episode. And I just didn't want too much time to pass, like, between this Ironic cover and then the next time that I was going to do an episode. So I figured I would just hop on really quick and discuss it before it became too out of date to talk about. So with that being said, I'm first going to give my thoughts really quick on the Not Gonna Run snippet. And I know it's just a little 10-second snippet that's out there for now. I'm not sure. I think the full song is probably circulating around somewhere, but it's not very widely available. So I just only have this 10-second snippet on YouTube to go by. I'm really surprised that it leaked at all, especially so many years later, that it, this is one of those long-awaited mythical songs from that album that, fans have been talking about for years. And I'm sure we never really thought that we'd ever get to hear it. So the fact that even just a little snippet is out there, like, we have a little bit of an idea of what it sounds like. And unfortunately with this snippet, there is like an audio watermark over it. So it's kind of hard to try to hear underneath, hear what's underneath the audio watermark. But you can sort of make out what's going on, like what it sounds like. So I was really surprised that it seems to be more acoustic based. I mean, it's one of those things that could be kind of deceptive in the way that it sounds, where it starts out acoustic and then maybe it gets heavier when it reaches a certain point of the song. We just don't have enough of it to really know. But based on that little snippet, it sounds very acoustic based, unlike the rest of Under My Skin. And I know that for a long time, there's been some lyrics floating around on the internet, and no one ever knew if they were the real lyrics or if it was just fan-made lyrics. And I think we can now verify that they are fan-made, because I went and looked at these lyrics and there's nothing in them that matches the lyrics that are heard in the snippet. So I think we can pretty much deduce that those are fan-made. So I think no one truly knows what the real lyrics of this song are. So, like, we only have the little lyrics that we hear in the snippet and we don't have the rest of them. I definitely would be interested in hearing more of this one if it ever were to leak in full. It might be a few months until that happens. That kind of seems to be how this happens with these songs, is when they leak, sometimes if they start with just a little snippet, the full thing gets released eventually. Like, it just kind of has to pass through enough people before somebody like leaks it onto a more widely known site like YouTube or something. Not that I'm trying to promote the idea of releasing Avril's music illegally or leaking her music, but it seems kind of inevitable that these things will happen. So like the fact that the little snippet is out there already, and then the full song is out there somewhere, so it's probably only a matter of time until the full thing does leak. So if it does, I'll definitely be excited to check it out just to hear what it sounds like, just because it's been one of those songs that we have been hearing about for so long, and people claim that they heard it before some of the shows of the Bones tour and stuff. So this is just one of those ones that has a bit of like fan lore around it. So it's really interesting that now all of a sudden it's kind of made its way out there a little bit. The next song that I want to talk about is another leak, but this one is a full song. It's Adrenaline, which is a collaboration with Girlfriends. And like I said, I guess the fan rumor is that this was actually a song intended for Girlfriends. So it's Girlfriends featuring Avril, not Avril featuring Girlfriends. But interestingly, it did not make the cut of their latest album. So we don't know when this was recorded, but I think we can kind of assume it was in the last like year or two. So that's kind of strange, because you'd think that having a collaboration with someone at Avril's level that's a really big get, and would increase a lot of streams for the album and stuff. So the fact that they didn't choose it for the album, and the other song that they did together, which was Love Just Isn't Enough, which I didn't have a chance to hear that one. That one is not widely circulating anywhere public like YouTube or anything. So that one's very tricky to find for now. But it's interesting that neither of these songs made the final cut of the album. So it's kind of strange that they worked on these songs together and then just decided to scrap them both. Maybe it's just possible that they didn't fit with the album or what they were trying to do. I don't know, because I haven't heard the album. But in any case, just talking about the song Adrenaline itself, it sounds like more Love Sux adjacent material, like very similar pop punk, John Feldman type stuff. Yet another song about like a toxic relationship, but how she can't get enough of it kind of thing. When I first heard the song, to me, it's like, it's catchy, but it sounded too high school. It sounded too teenagery. Like the lyrics read more to me like we're talking about two teenagers rather than two adults. And I'm getting kind of bored of these songs that are romanticizing toxic relationships. Like we already had a song like that on Love Sucks with Love It When You Hate Me. And I think that's probably more than enough. Like I don't think we need to keep having these kinds of songs. Maybe like one song talking about it, like as kind of a different angle, I guess, on relationships. Maybe that is a reason why they scrapped it, is that they just thought thematically maybe it wasn't very strong, or like it felt kind of repetitive at that point. So I do think it's catchy. The chorus is definitely very catchy, but otherwise I think, it doesn't really add much like that we haven't already heard. I also wanted to point out that I finally got to hear Reason with All Time Low, which leaked a long time ago. Like, I don't even remember at this point when it leaked, but it was quite a while ago. And I just now got to finally hear it, because I think at the time I'd only heard a snippet and I couldn't really comment too much on it. So this is not a new leak, but it's new to me, I guess. I don't really have much of an opinion about it, honestly. It's just like, I think it's okay, but I don't really have much to say on it, honestly. So now that brings us to the main event of this episode, which is her cover of Ironic. And this is an actually officially released song, which is nice to have. It's nice when we get officially released songs and not just these little leaks and stuff that we're not really supposed to be hearing. So this is her version of Ironic by Alanis Morissette. And I think most of us are familiar with when she covered it back in 2005 at the House of Blues. She did a performance with Alanis herself. And they not only did Ironic together, but they also did Losing Grip together. And there is like a very low quality recording that someone from the audience took of those performances. And I think Avril just sounds so phenomenal on that song, even just from that performance. But I'm sure that we've always been wanting a more proper studio version of it. Like this song is just tailor-made for her voice. And I think that kind of makes sense because she grew up loving Alanis Morissette, and particularly the Jagged Little Pill album. And it sounds like something that she could have written, which again makes sense because Alanis was obviously such a huge influence on Avril, especially on the Let Go album. You can really hear the influences in songs like Losing Grip. And I think it's pretty clear as well that Alanis is a pretty big influence on Avril vocally. Like she does a lot of that yodeling thing that Alanis does. They both have a bit of that like grit and angst in their voice. So I think Avril did such a phenomenal job with this recording. The common sentiment that fans have been saying about this is that her voice sounds phenomenal on it. And I was surprised to see that John Feldman produced it because it sounded different than like the Love Sucks kind of stuff that we've been hearing. So I was happy to see him do something a little different than the normal. I think one of the hangups that people have had with his production style is that, especially on the Love Sux album and some of those B-sides that we got, that whenever he does something like pop punk, like traditionally pop punk with Avril, is that her voice tends to get kind of over processed and overly compressed, and it sounds kind of like chipmunky. And here he just kind of let her voice do its thing. There was still like, of course, some processing done to it and effects and things like that done to it, but it was so much more natural sounding, and they kind of left her, like, those raw parts of her voice intact. And I feel like we just never really get to hear her voice like that much anymore. It kind of reminded me of the way that her voice sounded in albums like Goodbye Lullaby and Head Above Water, that kind of more natural voice. Especially on the second verse, I think in particular, like, a lot of people said it kind of reminded them of the way that she sounded during the Let Go and Under My Skin eras. So yeah, this kind of had like a bit of a nostalgic sound to it, not just because the song itself is so old, but I think it kind of reminds us of that earlier time in Avril's career, like especially when she was covering that song and when she was doing kind of more Alanis type songs in her discography. And the way that she would sing live back then really kind of had those qualities to her voice back then. So I think this really kind of brought a lot of us back to that time when we heard this. Like my first impression of hearing it, I was so impressed when I heard, we had gotten to hear the teaser of it in the trailer and she sounded really great in the trailer, but hearing the full song for the first time, I was blown away with what I heard. Like, I feel like she sounds the best on this song than she has in years, honestly. And it was so good to get to hear her kind of in that more natural, raw form that we haven't really gotten from her in a while. And I would honestly love it if we were able to get like an entire record produced like this. Like, I think a lot of people, after hearing this song, they're hoping that for the next record that maybe she goes in kind of like a Goodbye Lullaby direction again, where it's something more acoustic and raw and the vocal is kind of the main instrument. Like, after an album like Love Sux, I feel like that would be a nice change of pace. Like, John Feldmann is really strong at producing instrumentals. Like, he's really good with guitars and drums and producing that like pop punk sound. But I think if she was to do something a little more acoustic based, like she could still have her guitars and drums in there, but doing something kind of more soft rock or acoustic based, or letting the vocal kind of be more front and center and like not over processing it so much, I feel like could be a really nice change of pace from what Love Sux was. Something else that I really like about the way that Avril interpreted this song is that you can tell that they really tried their hardest to be faithful to the original. That might have also had something to do with the movie studio itself. Like, the movie studio usually has a large amount of input on the movie soundtrack, and they're pretty much dictating how they want the soundtrack to be. So maybe it was also like instruction from the movie studio, like, because like the whole soundtrack is reimaginings of the Jagged Little Pill album by different female artists. And so they probably told everyone when they were like redoing these songs to remain faithful to the original, because they want to just pay respect to the original, because the Jagged Little Pill album plays a big role in the movie plot. So I think they just didn't want to like make anything like unrecognizable or anything. So I think Avril did a really excellent job, and John Feldmann too with his production. Like, they did a really excellent job, like note for note, pretty much doing an exact copy of the original. But Avril, here and there, you could tell kind of took liberties a little bit with how she chose to sing certain words or certain lines, like just the inflections she would do with her voice or certain note choices and stuff like that. She would kind of take her liberties, I guess, where she felt that it worked without overdoing it. I think that can be the temptation sometimes with these covers, especially a song like Ironic that is pretty much like, gosh, how old is that song now? Like 30 years old. That can be the temptation sometimes with songs that are, quite old and have been around for a while and been covered so many times. It can be tempting to want to like put your own spin on it. And sometimes you do that to the point where it's no longer recognizable. And thankfully, Avril didn't go there with that. I think it wouldn't have been received very well if she had done that. Like, the song is so great by itself. It's such a great song on its own already. And so it didn't really need to be improved upon or messed with too much. And Avril was kind of just able to put her Avril spin on it a little bit, that you could tell it's Avril. Like, you can tell that it's her signature voice, it's her signature tone. And the song just fits her so well because Alanis is such a big influence on her, but it's still very, very faithful to the original. So I think this is one of the best things that we've seen the Avril and John Feldmann team come out with. So I think this is a really great addition to Avril's discography, and I'm just happy to have something new to listen to. Like, I have been playing it on repeat a bunch of times since it came out. So I think that about does it for me for this episode. As far as any other updates from me, like I said, it's been largely pretty quiet for Avril other than this ironic cover. And even then, she hasn't really posted too much about it. Like she shared it on her social media that it was out, but she hasn't really talked very much about it. At least at the time that I'm recording this, she hasn't talked about very much about it yet. So I'm not really quite sure what's going on with her. I'm hoping that everything's okay with her, but I would kind of assume so just from like the little bit that we have seen of her. Like I said, the fact that she was with Lola Young at Paris Hilton's birthday party kind of indicates that she seems okay. We don't know when exactly she was in the studio to do Ironic, but obviously at some point in the last year, she was in the studio recording the song. So hopefully everything is all good with her. And we still don't have any news on the next album, like where she's at with it and if she's even been in the studio otherwise to work on new music at all. We have like literally no information. So I just hope that whatever she's doing, that she's fine and, you know, she can take her time. I would rather that she take her time to form something that she's truly proud of rather than just like rushing something out. And I hope that she just, you know, takes her time and, you know, can maybe work on other hobbies if she wants to. Like we know she enjoys cooking and painting and those kinds of things. Maybe she's kind of just like turning towards some of these more passion projects like, oh, you know, you asked me to be part of this movie and do an Alanis Morissette song. Sure. You know, it just kind of goes to show that even when we don't hear a lot from her, she's still always working on stuff. And it's really a nice surprise. Like, even though it's like, you know, we go for months without hearing anything. And then all of a sudden we get this thing that she's been working on, but in a way that makes it like a nice surprise. And then as for me, I am, like I said, still planning at some point to do that episode I talked about with the music videos and going through all of her music videos and just pointing out things I notice about them. But obviously that's like a quite intensive project that would take a long time to do. So I didn't want it to be too long until I came back with an episode. So I figured I would hop on here really quick and just talk about this new song that we've gotten from her and those couple of weeks that I talked about. And just kind of give a little update about, you know, where Avril's at. So hopefully it won't be too long until you hear from me again. But I just end up, you know, working on episodes as I'm able to. So that's it for this quick edition of the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you can get new episodes directly in your feed. And please don't forget to take a minute to leave a rating or review to help more fans find the show. We're currently streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, and Audible. Be sure to join me again next time, whenever that is, on the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast. The Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast is hosted, produced, and edited by Andrea DiFrancesco. Theme music is HD and Lights by J. Powell Flicks. Follow the latest podcast news on Instagram at bestdamnavrilpod or email bestdamnavrilpod@yahoo.com.